to look back at the last Forge FC contest.
Simply stunning stuff! And finally, their goal!
Here is Match and Review.
My word, what a rocket!
With Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network.
Hello, Forge fans. What an incredible match we were treated to in Winnipeg. Your Forge FC really grinding out a 3-2 win that sets them up nicely heading down this difficult stretch. Now, I'm not an all or nothing kind of guy. I don't make it a habit to be hyperbolic, let's say. But when we talk about potential, maybe turning points, maybe catapults for a club at getting hot, clicking at the right time, I've got to tell you, this felt like one of those matches. And it's not because it was this dominant 90-minute. I got to tell you, and we've learned this over the years, match over match, that those dominant performances are nice, but they don't necessarily, there's not a lot of character in them all the time. They don't necessarily give you a glimpse into what a club is all about. This one, though, this was a difficult 3 points. I mean, this took a lot of just emotional swings, adjustments on the fly. Every single player, every position played a role. The coaching staff came up huge in this one, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, it's 3 points on the road in a place, you know, over the years, these two clubs have been almost 50-50 in terms of their head-to-head matchup since 2019. Forge had a slight edge with one extra win, but they've been essentially even. I mean, this has always been a difficult club for Forge to play against and a difficult venue for Forge to play in Winnipeg at Investors Group Field. But Valour, on the brink of elimination, not able to qualify for the postseason. They desperately needed 3 points, and they played that way. But Forge, just a little bit better. They did just enough, just the right amount. And the Stars, you know, you need your big guys to show up in big moments, and they did. And I got to tell you, I'll say it again. This win was more impressive than than that 4-0 win at York or some of these other dominant whistle-to-whistle victories Forge have had. Because you don't really learn a lot about your club in those matches. When everything's going right, it's great. You want to see how your team responds to adversity, and you really want to get a sense of who your guys are. And I think this coaching staff, the fans, we learned a lot about this team in this match, and the timing could not be better. Let's go to the top. There's a lot to talk about here. Valour coming out in their home black, Forge in their orange. Starting lineup, some surprises, but not really when you give it at first, maybe surprises, but then you give it a second. You're like, okay, I know why this is the way it was. Up top, Forge FC, Benny Batty Banga, Taron Campbell, and the 17-year-old Kevin Tavernier up top as part of the attack. In the midfield, Kyle Becker, Abubakar Sissoko, and Kadeem Kane as your classic six. On the back line, Matusala and Rama, your fullbacks, Ashton Yodi-Johnson, Mandrakar James, your center backs, and Tristan Henry in goal. And oh my goodness, not that we needed to learn any more about Tristan Henry. I say it week in, week out, the best goalkeeper this league has ever seen, ever witnessed. And he shows it. Week in, week out. Consistency out of your goalkeeper. Ultimately, that's all you're asking for. That's one wild card. You don't want your keeper to be a wild card. That's the last thing you should. If you're a coach, the beautiful thing about having a quality elite keeper is that you don't have to worry about them. You don't have to think about them. That's one less thing for you to worry about. And Tristan Henry showed up again today and really at moments looked like he would be the man of the match, but things evolved quickly in this one. Now, if you were looking at the lineup, And you see Tavernier, Kadeem Kane, you're going, these are big matches for Forge, and nothing against those young players, but there are guys who are more proven and maybe more just consistent, reliable based on their body of work that were on the bench, and you're saying, what is going on? Well, U21 minutes, very important. In fact, if you do not get your minimum 2,000 minutes, you don't get to play in the playoffs. So it's pretty important. Coming into this match, Forge FC needed 371 more minutes from their U21s. And coming into this match, it had been 4 matches remaining. So some work ahead of them. And for this coaching staff, Tavernier, I mentioned 17 on a development deal. Kadeem Kane, 18. So these are the guys. And Kwesi Poku would have been part of that mix as a U21 guy, and he's more experienced than the other two, but unavailable because of suspension. And I'm not sure if there's anything outside of that. So that's why the youngsters were in. And by the way, I do want to point this out. I get this every time I watch a match in Winnipeg at Valour. Maybe this says more about the crew at Tim Hortons Field than anything else. That changeover from football to soccer, I mean, it can't be easy because you're getting rid of, on a football field, there's a lot of white lines going on there. It's packed with white lines, and you have to get rid of those for a soccer match. And at Tim Hortons Field, you watch it. I mean, in terms of just quality pitches that look nice just on TV, and I know that seems like shallow or whatever, but it does matter because you're presenting the sport to people that maybe aren't as familiar, and they can get kind of a sense just by looking at the pitch, the stadiums. There's just a sense you get whether this is going to be something you want to continue to watch or maybe attend down the road and spend money on. And I'm not saying it's easy. I don't know what goes into these changeovers, but they just, whatever they're doing at Valour just isn't cutting it for me. I know a lot of work goes in. I spoke to Ed Tate earlier this week. He's a Hall of Fame journalist in Winnipeg, and he talked about how hard that crew works with a field changeover and how great of a job they do. I don't know. It just, all I'm going off of is optics. It doesn't look good. I don't know. I don't know why Tim Hortons Field. Maybe it's just Tim Hortons Field has this elite crew and I'm sure they do, but they do a fantastic job. I mean, you can't tell which sport is. When football's being played, it looks like a football field. When soccer's being played, it looks like a soccer pitch. Valour, I don't know what that looks like, to be honest with you, because it's not something you'll see really anywhere else. Not appealing. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what goes into it. I'm just speaking from my eyes and what looks good, and that does not look good. But nevertheless, there was a match to be played. You could definitely see from the onset a sense of urgency out of Valour. Forge, they looked like, I use the word composed. They looked very calm. But I don't know that was a good thing. I don't know that I want to see a team calm in this kind of environment. Not against a very aggressive team that was in a literal must-win, do-or-die scenario. And I would have liked to see Forge's attack a little more lively. There were multiple moments in the early going where Terran Campbell looked like he was alone at the top of the attack. Just not a lot happening around him off the ball. Not a lot of support. And we've always talked about the tactical demand under Bobby Smirniotis. If you are going to play for Bobby Smirniotis and his staff, there is an expectation that you are going to play a certain style of match, a certain style of tactics. And it's not, I'm assuming it's not easy. But with some new faces, many of them young in the starting lineup, it got me thinking, can that tactical demand cause a pause in a player still trying to process new things? I mean, you would think it would have to. It'd be only natural. It's hard to just play instinctual when all of a sudden you have new instruction and you don't want to disappoint your teammates or your coach. You're trying to do the right thing, but it can slow you down a little bit. And it looked too often, Terran Campbell was just kind of alone without a lot of support. And is that overthinking from teammates. It didn't look fluid. It didn't look natural. And Forge always looks their best when it's just bang, bang, bang. It's pace, it's speed, it's ball movement. If you're the opponent, you're dizzy after a Forge possession because there's so much, it's just so quick and there's so much going on and it's so confident. And that was lacking in the attack, at least early on. Boy, did that change. 11th minute. Despite all of these seemingly negative things I said, Forge opened the scoring. The league's most underrated player over the past 2 seasons, Abubakar Sissoko, just the hardest working guy you'll ever see. Box to box, he's one of those guys. There's some, I don't want to perfect, that gets thrown around, and sometimes it's impossible to be accurate when you call someone perfect, but he just seems to do everything right. And he was rewarded. Received a delivery over the top by Mandrikar James, landed inside the area. Yisley, the Valour keeper, charged off his line, but Sissoko was able to lift it over the keeper. And it's 1-0 Forge FC. You're on the road. You opened the scoring. It is exactly what you're looking for. But I mentioned Forge, not super urgent. Valour, very urgent, because it was literally, it was do or die for them. They needed 3 points. So 2 minutes after Forge opened the scoring, desperate for 3 points, Valour comes right back. Tristan Henry made an incredible save. But his teammates did not bail him out on the second, third chance opportunities. The teammates just did not pick up the loose bodies in the area. Keon Williams, unmarked, was able to drive it home. Very frustrating for Tristan Henry after making just an unbelievable diving save to his right like he did. Nevertheless, we are even at 1. 27th minute, Rama gets the first booking of the match. He gets a yellow after an aggressive challenge from behind. He had already received a warning for his ongoing battle with Debrienne, and it's always noteworthy when Rama gets an early booking because his style of play is very aggressive. It's why he's great. So you can't really tell him to tone it down. You can, but it ruins it's who Rama is. It's why he's Rama. He's going to give you that 110, just pedal to the metal, full aggressiveness, full energy at all times. So when a guy like that gets booked early in the 27th minute, it is cause for pause, because is it going to take him out of his game? Or if it doesn't, is he going to get that second booking and now put his team down a man? So early booking to Rama, it's always a little noteworthy for Forge FC. A few minutes later, Tristan Henry, he was just unbelievable in this match. So many key saves. He was forced to make another, diving again after Valour found some gaps in between the Forge midfield. And on the other side of things, there were a lot of gaps waiting to be exploited by Forge FC, especially on that right flank. I don't know if Valour was just not feeling threatened by the 17-year-old Tavernier in his starting debut, but there was space there. And Forge was just a little off in finding adequate deliveries into that space. Maybe it's a chemistry issue. Again, his first start, still getting used to his teammates. That's something that, you think of the guys who have played wing for Forge FC. Chouanier, Borges, now you have Badi Banga. There's just so much quality there. You're used to it just being easy, just clicking. But when you have a new face there, it is going to take some time. So valuable. Things got better for sure, but early on, that area was there, and Forge was just a click off. 38th minute, Matusala looked to be in some discomfort physically. He was subbed off for Malcolm Duncan. That was the first sub for Forge FC. Hopefully, Garvin is feeling okay. 46th minute, Tristan Henry, his third absurd save of the first half. A header that forced him to adjust to the ball's sudden change in trajectory. Henry, in midair, shoots his right hand up and punches the ball away. I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. The first half ended 1-1. Valour, though, certainly the better team in the first half. Expected goals after the first 45 plus 0.86 for Valour, 0.53 for Forge. Valour had 57% of the ball possession. Goal attempts, close, 9-8 in favor of Forge, but shots on target, this was the difference in the first half. For me, 4-1 in favor of Valour. And I'd seen a stat. I'm trying to find it now. I put it in my notes, and apparently I'm not as organized as I should be. No, here it is. Forge FC. Well, this is for the match. Let me break it down to the first half here. Shots off target and blocked shots. So one of the three keys was to hit the target. Sometimes you get a little too, I don't want to say cute, but you're trying to score. You're trying to beat the keeper. It's understandable. You're trying to get around him and find open space and to at least aim your shots. But sometimes you can be a little too fine and miss the target. And I would say for Forge in that first half, 9 shot attempts, 8 of them were either off target or blocked. So going into the second half, a point of emphasis was to at least, I would imagine, to at least hit the target. Second half begins with a sub. Kadeem Kane out, in. Alessandro Hojab Rapport. We're getting closer, and I don't, all due respect to Kadeem Kane, it's an age, it's an experience difference, and that matters, especially this time of year. And with where Forge wants to be, they need 3 points here. Hojab Rapport comes in for the second half, and Forge really started to attack that right side of the pitch. Those areas where they were missing, things were clicking all of a sudden. And Tavernier, by the way, looked much more comfortable. Early in the half, he sent Taron Campbell in for a dangerous attempt that the Valour keeper stopped. Tavernier delivered that ball from the middle. You noticed in the second half, if you were able to watch the game, Tavernier was very kind of static on the right side of the pitch. The second half, though, he was moving and he was drifting and playing a lot more in the center and playing that overlap with Rama, which again, that's something that takes chemistry. It takes time to build. But Tavernier finding himself in the middle of the pitch more, he looked a lot more comfortable, dangerous, and it looked like a different player. Just quicker, and showed off his ability to create and showed some danger. And that's what you're looking for out of a 17-year-old for sure. Right away in the second half, you could see Forge, a different club, more lively. Valour is an aggressive club. And I spoke to you about it frequently in that match day preview. Valour's aggressive in all phases. They have guys that come right at you, not only on the attack, but when they're defending as well. If you're standing still, you have no choice. In other words, if someone's playing aggressive and you are playing slow, you are putting yourself in a very difficult situation. That aggressiveness, though, can be easily beaten, especially with a club that has some quality like Forge FC does. If you're moving and anticipating, playing on the front foot, you can use Valour's aggressiveness against them by drawing them out of position. And Forge looked so much better in the second half. Unfortunately, in the 57th minute, a patient Valour waited for an opening, and it was DeBrienne making a run that sent him in alone. Now, Tristan Henry came out, got his hands around the ball. He appeared to have it in his hands for a tenth of a second, but DeBrienne's forward momentum, there was momentum, but he certainly kicked his foot out. So he kicked the ball out of Henry's mitts, giving him a gaping goal in Valour's go-ahead goal. It was 2-1 at that point for Valour. Quick sequence. It's a difficult play for a referee to call when it's happening that quick, unless you have some kind of VAR replay system. This is going to happen in sequences that happen this quickly. Forge protested, as you'd expect. Yellow card was presented to Badi Banga. The coaches were upset. Understandable, but it was what it was. 2-1. Valour now with a lead. They're feeling good. They're feeling comfortable. Forge comes back with a substitution. Taron Campbell, Tavernier out, in Rubens Pasillas and Tristan Borges. And an immediate difference was made. 64th minute, Batty Banga delivered a gorgeous ball into the area. Forge had 7 guys in the box. And this was kind of indicative of just some of the things that were lingering from that first half. Forge had around 7 guys in the box, but not a single run toward that ball. That beautifully placed ball that just ended up bouncing to the keeper. Barely any movement. In fact, you could see Hojab Rapport just gesturing to his teammates, like, let's go. Come on. What are we doing here? And then Hojab Rapport coming in as a sub. He not only talks that he can walk the walk. We already knew that. But he showed it again. Starts the sequence like he normally does with these builds. Borges then finds Rama with a beautiful through ball. Rama, who just sometimes doesn't get, because he is that bulldog pit bull of a player, he doesn't really get a lot of credit for some of his playmaking ability, and he can certainly do that as a fullback. And he found Pasillas running in from the top of the area. Mr. Efficient, scoring at an elite rate despite not getting the minutes this season that he did last. He scores, and this match is even. Pasillas, by the way, I was surprised to hear this because it doesn't seem like he's been around that long, but this shows how efficient and how dangerous he can be. He doesn't need a lot of opportunity. It doesn't need a lot of minutes. He is now the 4th all-time on the CPL goal list with 27. That is remarkable. I had to go back. I thought I heard it on the broadcast and I went back and checked and I was like, wow, it's amazing. He has not been in this league for that long. And like I said, he's not getting, the full 90 game in and game out, but still 4th all time on the CPL goal list. And then moments later, Batty Banga found the captain making a run. Becker was stopped in close, but that goal from Valour really sparked something in Forge. That sequence with Hojab Rapport kind of rallying his teammates in the area. Things just started to roll. The momentum started to build. Borges looked like a man on a mission the second half. The second he touched the turf, everything he did was with a purpose. And this looked like Forge FC. And they were rewarded for their efforts in the second half. 84th minute, Rubens Pasillas gets the ball in his feet. He posted up like a big center in basketball. 2 guys were on him. And he was about 10 yards outside the area. He gets taken down. He draws the foul thanks to his hard work, his patience, determination. That sets the stage for Benny Batty Banga. Yet again, he scores his 2nd of the season off a set piece. Both of his goals now have come off set pieces. I refuse to believe this wasn't deflected, because if it was not, Batty Banga has some kind of magic that I don't understand it. This ball barely had any spin on it. It went over the wall and just dropped. I mean, it was a Tim Wakefield knuckleball. It just went up, dropped. Barely any movement on the ball. I saw it and I was like, there's no how, but I watched the replay and I didn't see it touch anything. I will give him the credit, but it was almost too good of a goal that you wonder how it was possible. But as of right now, it went in clean. It was a knuckler. And the bottom just fell out of the ball. It dropped in. Yesley just stood there. I mean, what do you do with a ball like that? It dropped into the lower right corner. Benny did his signature backflip and a Batty banger. That made it 3-2. And Forge FC would hang on for all 3 points. Your final stats at the end of this one. Expected goals in Valour's favor, 0.92 to 0.75 for Forge. Ball possession in Valour's favor at 55%. Again, I mean, that's an indication of how much better Valour was in the first half as far as I'm concerned. But because that second half, I mean, it was just a completely different game. Valour's expected goal, here's your stat. And here's the difference. First half, Valor's expected goals were 0.86, and they had one. Second half, Valor's expected goals 0.06, virtually zero. But they scored because of that play where Henry had the ball and it was kicked out of his hands. But Valor did not do much. I mean, well, they did next to nothing in that second half. And Forge was clearly the better side. They came out. They made, I mentioned how much credit the coaches deserve. They made adjustments. They made changes. And they brought guys on that were able to elevate their teammates with their experience, with their quality. Guys that don't just tell you what to do, but they show you on a touch-to-touch basis. And at the end of the day, Forge FC with a just monstrous 3 points. We'll revisit the 3 keys to the match. And yeah, I honestly, I don't know if these were checked off. Those two halves, I mean, they just did not align. But key number 1 for Forge FC was counter ready. And that just came from in a space where Valor's going to be aggressive. They're going to be on the front foot. They're going to try and beat you one-on-one. They're going to push you. And if you're Forge, there were opportunities on the counter. And they didn't necessarily result in any goals, not directly anyway, a few builds. But at the end of the day, that's kind of a wash. So we'll kind of put a straight line through that one. Key number 2, find the gaps. There were just so many areas of the pitch ready to be exploited. They couldn't quite connect in the first half. They found them in the second. That is a huge check mark and a big reason why. 2 of their goals just came from attacking those open spaces, those gaps, and capitalizing. So it's a big check on find the gaps. And key number 3, hit the target. They should have hit it more than they did, but at the end of the day, they hit it enough. And there's your check. So 2 out of 3 and 1 draw as far as the 3 keys go. But the moment you've all been waiting for, because ultimately here is all that matters at this time of year. And it's the standings. It's the table. At the conclusion of this one, Forge FC now with 39 points. They are in second place in the CPL. You need... Not need, that's maybe the wrong word. You want to finish in the top 2. Look, ideally you finish first. You get CONCACAF with that. You get the award for the best regular season club. You get to host that 1 versus 2 playoff game. It's important, but ultimately the next best thing, and Cavalry is just it's not official, but it looks like they've secured top spot in the CPL. They're certainly on their way. So if you're Forge, you need to find that second spot. Second place means you will play the first place team in the playoffs. The winner goes straight to the final, and they get to host that final. So there is essentially a home field advantage in the final play-in game at the beginning of the playoffs if you finish 1 or 2. And if Forge can finish there, they would likely play Cavalry, and the winner would host CPL final. The loser of that match is not out, and that's the key. This is better than a bye week in the playoffs because it's a play-in game, not only for home field, but if you lose, it's okay. You go right into the semifinal, and you get potentially another crack at that team you just lost to in the final. So getting into the top 2, paramount in terms of just your odds of winning a title go up exponentially if you finish in the top 2. And that's where Forge want to be right now. And they are at the conclusion of this match. Now, Pacific is 2 points back. They do have a match in hand, but it doesn't matter. Forge, this is why these 3 points were so important. With these 3 points, Forge, they now control their destiny. With 3 matches remaining, they have a match against Pacific coming up next week in Hamilton at Tim Hortons Field. That's going to be a big one. ForgeFC.ca/tickets. You're going to want to see that one live. So what an opportunity now for Forge. I mean, they could punch their own ticket into a top 2 finish with a win against Pacific next week. As for Valor, they are in 7th place. They are now 10 points out of a playoff spot. So, I think that's all she wrote for Valour. And they're only 3 points better than Vancouver, by the way, who's in last. Valour and Vancouver have the same amount of victories this season. Vancouver being an expansion club. I mean, they're a team built from scratch. Valour, they've been here since 2019. So, I mean, that is and, they've lost 4 of the last 5 matches as they were competing for a playoff spot. So just an ugly, ugly finish for Valour at this point. And they're only 3 points. I mean, just in terms of pride, to finish below Vancouver would be a very, very big blow. And with that win, we need to emphasize Forge FC really cementing their status now as the best away team in the CPL. And that is good news going into the postseason, because it looks like they're going to play at least one away match. And those are ones you're going to, and this is a club that should feel very comfortable playing away from home, because they've done it all year. In 13 matches, they have 23 points. That is the best in the league. And they will have an opportunity next week on Saturday, 7:00, Forge FC home to Pacific FC at Tim Hortons Field. Forge they really need to, if there's one area they really, really need to get better, not better, but at least see better results, is I'm just playing at home. The 2 of the final 3 matches are at home, and great opportunity not just to pull ahead of Pacific for second place, but to really just feel good about how you are performing at home, because they have Pacific at home next week. Week after that, very tough match on the road at Wanderers ground against Halifax, who's hungry, and then back at home, the regular season finale on October 7th. It's going to be a 4:00 match at Tim Hortons Field, and the rivals, Atletico Ottawa, will be in town. So if you are a Forge FC fan, and I assume you are, at least the vast majority of you watching and or listening, you should feel really, really good about what you saw from the club, just the character, the resolve. You have to be able to win in different ways. You have to be able to win when things don't go your way. Giving up a lead, going down, having a goal scored against you that was questionable and that you just felt angry about, and then to regroup and tie the game after that, and then score the game winner after that is huge. And it was on the road against a desperate club that was fighting for their lives. That is a very enjoyable trip home if you're Forge FC. And if you are a Forge fan, that sets you up for the week. You can feel good, and you can feel excited about what is going down on Saturday at Tim Hortons Field. Forge, Pacific, second place on the line. A potential, an easier path to a CPL final. And not only that, a home CPL final hangs in the balance. Forge can finish second and then beat Cavalry. I know there's a long way to go. I know I'm counting my chickens, but that's okay, because I'm allowed. That's my job, is to give you all the scenarios, and you can figure it out for yourself. But good feeling if you're a Forge fan. Let that feeling go on throughout the week. Your final one last time, 3-2, Forge FC ahead of Valour. Check, subscribe to the Forge Audio Network. You will be getting all set for that match with Pacific. Mackenzie Barwell will deliver Forge Daily. You'll hear from Bobby Smirniotis behind the beard. Kyle Becker has his own show now on the network, The Captain's Log, and you'll hear me. I will get you fully prepared for Pacific and Forge later this week. So the only way to get notified instantly is to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe to the Forge channel on YouTube. Until then, enjoy your week, and we'll talk to you very soon.
This has been Match in Review with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. For the latest on all things Forge FC, subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.